Hidden from prying eyes, shrouded in the depths of night, a story unfolds, brimming with tension and unspoken desires. Picture a woman rushing out of her home, her movements betraying a powerful agitation. Pulling a thin coat around her shoulders, she tries to shield herself from the biting wind that howls across the surrounding fields. But the elements hold no sway over her resolve. She heads towards an old barn, where something awaits her that could change her life forever. Darkness thickens around her, swallowing everything in an impenetrable shroud. Only the faint glow of a lantern, like a beacon of hope, guides her path. As she draws closer, she pauses before a massive wooden door. Her heart pounds wildly in her chest, like a bird desperate to break free. In the stillness of the night, a soft clatter of hooves echoes, as if a horse patiently awaits her arrival. Does he know she's coming? Gathering her courage, the woman pushes the door open. The creak of old hinges shatters the ominous silence. Inside the barn, a majestic figure greets her gaze, Stan, a horse with eyes as deep as night and a graceful build. His presence is almost physically palpable, drawing her in like a magnet. He looks directly at her, and in that gaze, she sees something that makes her freeze. She takes a tentative step forward. The air in the barn feels heavy, saturated with the premonition of something significant, inevitable. "You were waiting for me, weren't you?" she whispers, as if confessing a profound secret. The horse inclines his head slightly and snorts softly in response, as if confirming her words. She feels seen, understood, and a desire for more blossoms within her. For the first time in a long while, she feels truly heard, unlike her relationship with Lucas, which has left her feeling empty. A wave of emotion washes over her, and she feels the warmth emanating from the horse's body, reaching her fingertips. It's like an electric current running down her spine. In that moment, she realizes her life will never be the same. The wind continues to howl outside the barn walls, but she no longer hears it. Everything else fades away, leaving only her and Stan, and the burgeoning secret between them, like a flame ready to burst from the shadows. Standing beside the horse, she gently touches his back. Her gaze drifts into the void. She closes her eyes and takes a deep breath, filling her lungs with the scent of hay, damp earth, and the animal's warm breath. In this quiet sanctuary, she feels protected from the coldness of her lifeless home, from Lucas's detachment, and from the growing loneliness that tears her apart. Memories of past years flash before her eyes like a turbulent river. There was a time when she believed love could overcome any obstacle. What were she and Lucas once like? In love, inseparable, full of hope. She remembers the early days of their acquaintance when he made her laugh until she cried. They dreamed of a future, and he promised to always be there, to build a life they could be proud of. But those promises remained unfulfilled dreams. Over the years, Lucas became increasingly engrossed in his work, spending time in endless meetings and business trips. She no longer remembered when it all began. He became like a stranger, appearing at home only to drop his bag, give her a quick hug, and disappear behind his laptop screen again. She tried to salvage their relationship, cooked romantic dinners, tried to rekindle their old conversations, but he always brushed her off, promising later. But later never came, and the chasm between them grew wider. Lucas wasn't a bad person. He wasn't unfaithful, angry, or neglectful in the conventional sense. But his indifference made her feel invisible, a ghost in her own life. When Lucas bought Stan, she thought it was just another of his fleeting hobbies. But the horse became the only ray of light in her dreary routine. In his deep, understanding eyes, she found a peace she hadn't felt in years. She recalls her first meeting with Evelyn, the trainer Lucas hired. Evelyn was an unusual woman with a piercing gaze that seemed to penetrate the very soul. In her eyes, there was both calm and sadness, as if she carried the burden of her own wounds. She spoke little, but every word hit its mark, exposing truths Anna had tried to ignore. One day, while talking about Stan, Evelyn looked at her with a long, scrutinizing gaze and uttered a phrase she would never forget. "You know, horses like Stan feel what people refuse to admit. Sometimes loneliness becomes the strongest bond." At the time, she merely smiled politely and dismissed her words. But now, standing before the horse, she remembers Evelyn's words like a prophecy she hadn't wanted to acknowledge. Perhaps Evelyn was right. It was loneliness, the emptiness Lucas couldn't fill, that slowly drew her to Stan. She touches the horse's back again, feeling the warmth of his body beneath her hand. "You know," she whispers, "sometimes I wish I were a horse like you. No need to fight, no need to struggle, just to be free." The horse, of course, doesn't answer, but in his gaze, she sees understanding. And in that moment, she feels relief, but deep down, she knows everything is changing, and there's no turning back. Moonlight spilled across the surroundings, illuminating the narrow path leading to the log barn. Anna moved forward slowly, as if an unseen force drew her to the mighty Stan. The gusts of wind grew more palpable, piercing her with cold, but she paid no attention. A hurricane of conflicting emotions raged within her, both vague and all-consuming, as if her heart cried out for something incomprehensible to reason. The creaking hinges announced the barn doors opening, breaking the night's silence. Stan stood there, the moonlight reflected in his deep, dark eyes. In that instant, she felt the surrounding world dissolve into oblivion. Lucas, with his cold and distant phone calls, the countless lonely evenings, all of it lost its significance. Only she and Stan remained, as if destined for each other by fate itself. And it required no explanation. "You were waiting for me, weren't you?" she whispered, as if revealing a profound secret. Moving closer, she gently touched Stan's elegant black mane. The horse's warm breath brushed her face, bringing peace and silent support. She caressed him, allowing her fingers to glide over his smooth coat. The heavy burden that had weighed on her chest seemed to vanish, replaced by a rare tranquility bordering on unreality. But suddenly, something shifted. Anna couldn't recall what exactly prompted it. Perhaps it was Stan's piercing gaze fixed on her, or a slight tilt of his head expressing understanding. Or perhaps it was the storm raging within her, loneliness, longing, and the oppressive emptiness she couldn't fill. Her hand paused, and her palm pressed gently against his warm flank. Closing her eyes, she took a deep breath, even it trembling. Stan stirred slightly, lowering his head in response. His stillness, permeated with understanding, made Anna believe he could read her thoughts. Their gazes seemed to meet, deep, devoid of judgment or demands, yet so captivating that she couldn't look away. Her breathing quickened. She took another step closer, as if a chasm lay between them that needed to be bridged. A long moment hung in the air, filled with silence and anticipation. Her hand rested on Stan's chest, feeling the firmness and powerful rhythm of his heart beneath her fingers. Anna's heart pounded wildly, like a drum ready to shatter her fragile calm. For the first time in a long while, she stopped thinking. All arguments of reason, moral principles, and voices of logic fell silent. Only a sharp wave of emotion remained, and the chance to reveal the part of herself she had suppressed for so long. One small step, a slight lean forward, and Anna's world crumbled. She ceased to be her former self, that tired and depleted Anna. She transformed into a woman consumed by feelings she had never known before. But a sudden rustle tore through this fragile veil. Anna flinched, as if pulled from a feverish dream. A beam of car headlights pierced the barn, and her heart stopped. Evelyn stood at the door, her piercing gaze, like a dagger, plunged into Anna. She said not a word, but Anna knew Evelyn had seen everything. The atmosphere in the barn became highly charged. Evelyn's face reflected a mix of surprise and cold calculation, as if she was trying to piece together fragments of the scene she had witnessed. Anna tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. She felt her breath escape, like a silent confession. Shame, guilt, and fear constricted her chest, but somewhere deep inside, she felt a strange relief that her secret was no longer hers alone. Evelyn's voice broke the silence, calm but piercing, like a knife blade. Evelyn entered the barn, her movements slow but deliberate. Anna recoiled. This. I don't know, she stammered in a faint, almost inaudible voice. Evelyn stopped a few feet away from her, her perceptive gaze piercing Anna through and through. Do you understand what this will lead to? Evelyn asked in a quiet voice, but each word sounded like a blow. You're playing with fire, Anna. And when it burns out, there will be nothing left to save. Anna couldn't move. She stood, unable to avert her eyes from Evelyn, a whirlwind of emotions tearing her apart from within. She knew Evelyn was right, knew the truth contained in her words. Yet, despite that, she couldn't stop, not now, not even when she had already crossed the line she once considered inviolable. Evelyn stood motionless, her gaze sharp as a razor, pressing down on Anna, making it hard for her to breathe. She couldn't escape Evelyn's gaze, deny what had happened, or find an excuse for her actions. Did you really think this would remain a secret? Evelyn's voice was firm, but contained a suppressed fury. That no one would notice the changes in you, how your eyes change every time you leave this barn. Anna took a step back, gripping Stan's back as if it were the only thing preventing her from falling into the abyss. But Stan, the horse she once thought she understood better than anyone, was now silent. No movement, no sound, just a still presence. I didn't mean to, Anna stammered, her voice trembling. She knew her words meant nothing. She couldn't deny what Evelyn had seen, but she also couldn't explain the overwhelming emotions that had consumed her. Evelyn let out a short, sharp laugh, full of bitterness and irony. Evelyn's words struck Anna with the force of a blow, like thunder in a clear sky. This was no accident, but a conscious choice for which everyone bears responsibility. Instead of the expected remorse, Anna was overwhelmed by a feeling as if she were being pushed to the edge of an abyss. A storm of conflicting emotions raged within her, shame, anger, and despair overwhelmed her. Anna's voice, against her intentions, came out loud, almost a shout, "This is my life. You have no idea what I've been through. You don't know how lonely I am." Evelyn's expression remained unperturbed. "You're right, I don't know everything," Evelyn replied in a calm but deeply meaningful tone. "But I see you destroying not only yourself, but everything around you." Anna felt exposed, as if she had been torn apart. She stood, lost in Evelyn's cold, penetrating gaze, in her measured words, and the unsettling silence hanging over the barn. Every excuse, every apology she had found for herself, now seemed meaningless. She was simply a woman trapped, consumed by feelings she couldn't control. Lucas never, and then her gaze fell on the moonlight filtering through the cracks in the barn wall. "He never understood me, not completely. That's why you're doing this." Evelyn approached, and the distance between them closed to a few steps. "Anna, I'm not here to judge you. But you must be aware of your actions. This won't bring you the freedom you desire, it will only make things worse." Anna wanted to argue, to scream, to prove that Evelyn understood nothing. But how could she deny the truth in Evelyn's words? How could she ignore the fact that she had crossed a line she once considered inviolable? A sudden noise, like a sharp blade, pierced the tense silence. Anna froze, her head snapping towards the sound. A beam of car headlights swept across the field, cutting through the darkness like a razor. Lucas, Anna's heart plummeted, and she felt her body gripped by an icy cold. Evelyn looked at Anna, her penetrating gaze softening, and a spark of strange sympathy flickered in her eyes. "You need to make a choice," Evelyn said more quietly, but no less decisively. "Now, or you'll allow yourself to sink even deeper into this chaos." Anna's breathing quickened as Lucas approached, the headlights illuminating the barn wall and his pale, drawn face. Anna didn't know what to say or do. She only understood that every secret, every feeling she had hidden for so long, was now ready to burst forth. "Anna," Evelyn said one last time, her voice firm and unwavering, "now is the time for your choice. And only you can make it." Anna looked at Evelyn, then at the barn, and finally at the approaching headlights. Her mind was caught in a chaotic storm, but her heart beat with a clarity that defied everything else, as if trying to guide her. In that moment, she realized she had nowhere left to run. The headlights abruptly went out, plunging everything into darkness, but then immediately flared again, illuminating the barn door and capturing every detail of Anna's troubled face. She stood motionless, as if time had stopped. Evelyn took a step back, making room for Anna, but not retreating. Her penetrating eyes, usually cold and unyielding, now held a watchful silence, full of patience, as if awaiting Anna's final decision. The car stopped right by the barn. Lucas got out, his tall figure casting a long shadow in the bright headlights. The car door slammed shut with a thud, a dry sound, and silence once again settled in the air. He hesitated, briefly scanning the area, before heading towards the barn. "Anna, are you here?" Lucas called out, his voice calm as always, but to Anna, it sounded like thunder in the quiet night. She turned to him, their gazes met, and in that moment, she knew he knew something. Maybe it wasn't clear, maybe just an instinctive feeling, but he knew. "I couldn't sleep," she said, trying to remain calm, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her. "Just wanted to check this place." Lucas entered the barn, his gaze shifting from Anna to Evelyn, who stood a few steps away, silent and motionless as a shadow. His brows furrowed slightly, his gaze darting between the two women, trying to grasp what remained unsaid and hung heavily in the confined space. "What's going on here?" he asked in a curious tone, his eyes carefully surveying everything around him. Evelyn didn't answer. Anna knew she wouldn't answer. It was time for her to face the truth, to take responsibility for everything she had so desperately tried to hide. Now all eyes were on her, and it felt as if all paths had narrowed to a single point. She could lie again, prolonging the suffocating atmosphere of secrets and guilt, or confront the shame, pain, and vulnerability she so feared. Her gaze turned to Evelyn, whose face, though calm, expressed unwavering determination. It was a challenge that couldn't be ignored. Then Anna saw Lucas, in whose worried eyes a flicker of doubt appeared. She couldn't ignore it. She knew she couldn't stay silent. Lucas froze, his gaze narrowing, confusion in his eyes. He stood motionless, his gaze fixed on her. Evelyn delicately turned her face away, as if wishing to grant them privacy, yet remaining within the barn. Anna took a deep breath, as if preparing to jump into icy water. Every word she was about to utter was imbued with bitterness, shame, and that all-consuming despair she had never seen in Lucas's eyes. She understood that if she didn't open up now, these agonizing feelings would forever consume her soul. "I felt incredibly lonely, Lucas," she whispered, her voice trembling, and tears streamed down her cheeks like a broken dam. "This feeling has haunted me for so long, and I didn't know how to escape it. It felt like I was lost in a dark forest." Lucas didn't answer immediately, his words caught somewhere in his throat. He continued to look at her, as if trying to extract the truth from beyond her words, as if reading between the lines of her soul. "What does that mean, Anna? What are you trying to say?" His voice was muffled, and she felt the weight of every word he uttered. "I sought comfort where I shouldn't have," she continued, her voice trembling and breaking. "I lost myself, Lucas, like a shadow separated from its owner. I don't know how to explain it, but I crossed a line between us." Lucas took a step back, his eyes widening in astonishment and pain, as if he couldn't believe his ears. "Crossed a line," he repeated in a hoarse, barely audible voice, like an echo in an empty cave. Anna felt her chest tighten, as if an invisible hand had squeezed her heart in an iron vice. "I don't know how to explain it, Lucas," she said. "I just know that I allowed myself to go too far and now I can't turn back time to fix what I've done." She braced herself for an explosion of anger, expecting Lucas to start shouting or simply leave, slamming the door. But he did none of that. He just stood motionless, looking at her, his face a complex mask of intertwined emotions she couldn't decipher, like looking at an unfamiliar hieroglyph. Finally, he spoke in a quiet, heavy voice, as if each word was torn from the depths of his soul. "Do you still love me, Anna?" This simple question, like a lightning strike, shattered the last remnants of her fragile defenses. Anna looked up at him, and tears streamed uncontrollably from her eyes, like a broken dam. "I don't know, Lucas," she whispered. "I don't know what I feel anymore. But I want to find out. I want to understand why we became like this, why our love turned to ashes." Evelyn remained silent, but Anna felt her unwavering presence nearby, like a witness recording every detail of what was happening. Lucas turned and walked out of the barn without another word. His figure dissolved into the night shadows, illuminated only by the cold light of the car's headlights, leaving Anna standing alone, as if abandoned on a deserted island. "You did the right thing," Evelyn said in a calm but firm voice, like pronouncing a verdict. Anna didn't answer, words seemed impossible, as if stuck in her throat. She turned to Stan, who still stood in the same spot, like a stone statue. His dark, deep eyes looked at her as if they held all the answers she so desperately sought but couldn't find. She approached him and gently ran her hand down his back one last time, as if bidding farewell to the past. She needed to break free from this barn, to leave behind the shadows in which she had drowned for so long, like in a swamp. Outside, the moon continued to cast its cold, merciless light, and in that icy night, Anna walked away, carrying all the pain, regret, and a faint glimmer of hope. Perhaps someday she would find her way back to herself, like a lost traveler returning home.